A flight attendant sends an inappropriate picture to a passenger.
What is this, amateur hour?
And I give a flight attendant a terrible piece of advice. In this episode of Cockpit Confessionals. Coming up. Hey 7-4 crew, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. My channel, 7-4 Gear, is all about aviation. Even though I say this at the beginning of every series, I tell these stories in first person, but I'm not involved with any of these stories. If you have a story that you think would be good on this series, send it to my Instagram. And if you're under 18, not all these stories are family friendly. So if you're under 18, get your parents' permission, tell them some dude on the internet with a shaved head is trying to talk to you. If they say it's fine, we don't care, then come, sure, watch the video. I don't care, but seriously, don't talk to strangers. All right, let's get into it. I will be the first to admit that I'm not very good with women, but there's one thing that I do know, and that is if a girl likes you and you don't like her back, the lengths that she will go to get to win you over is incredible. And that's what happened in this story. This story took place when I was a relatively new regional first officer. I showed up to the gate, the captain and one of the flight attendants were there talking, and then I introduced myself and the other flight attendant showed up. It was going to be two pilots, two flight attendants. We were all together, so we headed down to the plane. If you don't know, the first officer usually does the outside pre-flight checks, make sure the walk around and all that stuff outside is done. So I don't even take my stuff inside the plane, I just set it down there on the jet bridge and do my walk around. Typically, by that point, the flight attendants have put away all their stuff. The one that's in the front of the plane is setting up her galley, and I can go put my bag away and not be in the middle of bumping and knocking into everybody. So that was my strategy. But this time, when I came back from my walk around, there was no flight attendant in the galley there. She was actually sitting up in my seat on the flight deck, chatting with the captain. In the past, I've been on a crew where the pilot is dating one of the flight attendants. And it can be a little bit annoying because if you're on a 4-day trip, on all their layovers, they're just trying to do their own thing separate from everybody else, and then it's you and the other flight attendant. Now, sometimes the other flight attendant, you are friends, and it's not that bad, but they're over there sucking face all the time, and then it's you and the other flight attendant. It's just kind of a weird, forced double date. If you're not trying to do that, it's just a little bit awkward. And I thought, okay, great. Luckily, this trip was just a one-day turn. We were in Denver, we were going to go to Toronto, Canada, and back. So I thought, whatever, not a big deal. It's going to be one short stop in Toronto, and then we'll be on our way back. Who cares? Now, I was sitting in the back in the cabin there while the flight attendant was sitting up there in my seat, and she was talking with the captain. And after like, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, I was like, well, I got to get my stuff done before we get ready to go to work. So I go up there into the flight deck and I say like, hey, do you mind if I get my stuff in here? And guys, if you're a normal looking guy like me, I'm sure you've experienced this where there is some girl and just the fact of you being around her, it annoys her. Just by you existing, she's talking to some guy and she's like so focused on them, just by you even existing, you can see she's just annoyed. That was the situation. So she gets out, you can tell she's a little bit irritated. She goes into the galley, I'm getting my stuff ready for the flight. And typically before a flight attendant will come up onto the flight deck and say, do y'all need anything? Water, trash bag, things like that. And so I just say, oh yeah, can I just get a regular room temperature water? Seems like a pretty normal request. That's typically what people ask. You'll get some pilots that are like, I want a coffee, and I want a juice, and I want a water, and I want this and that, and they can get like crazy demanding. I just want room temperature water. That's it, one bottle, no big deal. I could see the look on her face where she was irritated, and then she looked over to the captain, and his name was Ken. She looked over to Ken, and she goes like, and what about you? Can I get you anything? He's like, no, I'm fine. She's like, are you sure? Water, juice, anything you need? And he's like, no, I'm good. And then she leaves, and like, I don't know, 5 or 7 minutes goes by, and I still haven't had my water given to me. The galley is like 4 feet away from the flight deck. I mean, 4 feet. She could literally throw it up there, which I kind of thought was what was going to happen. So after about 10 minutes goes by, she comes back up again, hands me the water without even looking at me, just kind of hands it over to me. Then she looks over to the captain again, Ken, and she goes, hey Cappy, are you sure you don't need anything? Are you sure? Are you sure? She asked him like 3 or 4 times. I was like, Jesus, okay. So I'm getting all my stuff done. She leaves, and I look over, and Ken is one of those guys who's just real like chiseled jaw, goes to the gym all the time, just really, really good looking guy. And so I couldn't really blame her. He was a good looking guy. So we get everything done, we push back, and we're up in the air. And typically what happens is once we get into cruise, especially on a longer flight, and at the regionals, 3 hours is a long flight, we get up and we just start chatting like, where are you from? How long you been here? What's your plans? Where are you planning to go to? Things like that. And so I said, so how long have you and this other flight attendant, her name was Kim, so Ken and Kim. Anyway, I said, how long have you and Kim been together? And he goes, no, we're not together. I was like, are you sure? Because she was up here and she seems very attentive, and she's like, no, we're not together. I had a girlfriend for a long time and I just broke up with her like a couple months ago. Kim found out. Then she found out that I was on this trip and there was no flight attendant, so she picked it up in open time, and for the last like 3 months she's just been like chasing me really hard. We are not dating. Now, Kim was a pretty good looking girl, and guys, you can relate to this story. If you have no interest in a girl, she is going to pursue you so hard. But if you really like that girl, it's like trying to chase a 747 in a Cessna. Unless she wants to let you catch her, it's just never gonna happen. And that's kind of what was happening here. So 3-hour flight, we land, we deplane. I always get off and I do my walk around real quick. So I go off and do my walk around. By the time I come back, everybody's off the plane, and I get back up there, and of course I walk into the plane and Kim is sitting back up in my seat, laughing and giggling with Ken. So I'm like, okay. For those of you who don't know, when I'm bored, I snack, and flight attendants typically hate when you raid their snack cart, but luckily I don't care, and I just started raiding through all the snacks and taking the ones that I wanted. So I was sitting in the back of the plane in just the beginning part of the aircraft, the cabin area, because the other silent flight attendant, who still wanted nothing to do with anybody, was now sitting in the back of the plane still on her phone. Like, I don't know, she's like antisocial, which is not really common with flight attendants, but she's sitting back there, so I'm not gonna just walk all the way to the back of the plane. It's kind of weird and creepy. So I'm just sitting up in the front of the plane there, eating all my snacks like a big fatty fat. Eventually, about 15 or 20 minutes later, Kim ends up leaving my seat. I have eaten like 5 or 6 different types of snacks that were in the cart over there, and I was happy to go because I love my snacks. So I go up there, we get everything loaded up, we load up the passengers, and we're back on our way to Denver. I'm ready to get this day over with for sure. Now, something that's very different from when you're flying at the regionals and when you're flying a mainline or a large aircraft in the US is that at the regionals, you guys will fly together, you will stay together. The flight attendants will, when we land, will get everything ready in the cabin. The pilots will usually grab their bags and get their bags outside, and then as a crew of 4 or 3, depending on the size of your plane, you guys will walk off together. And that's typically how it worked, at least at my airline. We'd always leave the plane together, we'd arrive together, we worked as a team, and it was honestly a great time. So we get everything done, we're sitting outside, we're waiting for one of the flight attendants, and she eventually comes out, and we start heading out the jet bridge and just walking off as a crew together. So in the front, you have me and Silent Night that's sitting in the back with her cell phone. Just the two of us are side by side. And then of course, Kim is walking next to Ken, fondling over his eyes or whatever, and chatting back there. Now, little Miss Quiet Night over there is texting away on her cell phone, so it's basically just me walking in front of the couple that are not dating. So, I'm obviously being a dork and listening to what they're saying, and I hear Kim kind of quietly say, I see you liked the photos that I sent you, and now I'm really intrigued. I'm like, this should be interesting. Something I should mention, if you're not familiar with it, is Apple has this thing called AirDrop. It allows you to send a picture or a file to somebody that's also using an Apple product near you. So you can send it to their laptop or another phone or whatever you want, and you don't have to have their phone number or anything. You just need to have the name of their device, whatever they've named their device. So for example, my cell phone is called Kay's phone. I know, super creative, and now you know why I failed art class, but that's what my phone is called, just the name that I made for it. So you can be sitting up there with another pilot and just send them a picture. If you take a picture out your window and they want that picture, you can just airdrop them that picture without having their phone number. So that's what AirDrop is. Now, here's what happened. Kim was back there and she airdropped this photo. So she airdropped this photo, and what happens is when you airdrop a photo to somebody you don't know or you don't have their phone number, what will happen is sometimes the person will have to accept it. If they don't accept it, it doesn't go through. Now you can see that they've accepted and downloaded or received that photo, or they can reject it, in which case you're going to see that they didn't get the photo. So if you send multiple photos to someone, they keep accepting those photos, you see that those airdrops are going through. So now that you understand that, here's what happened. Kim says, I've been airdropping you photos through the whole flight on the way back. I saw you were downloading them. And Ken looks over and goes, you were airdropping me the photos? And she's like, yeah. Then Ken reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone. He goes, I have an Android. How are you airdropping it to an Android? So here's what's going on. So I casually look back and I see that she has this kind of panicked look getting worse on her face. So then she says, well then what's Captain Ken? Is it your iPad? Because we use iPads for work. So he goes, no, my iPad name's my employee number and then I have an Android for a phone. She goes, well then who's Captain Ken? And right there I put it all together. She'd been airdropping nudie photos to somebody on the plane called Captain Ken. And I'm hoping it was some kid who's like a flight simmer, but who knows. But she's airdropping these nudes to some guy named Captain Ken that's sitting there on the plane. And I'm thinking, I'm wondering if she's sending him with her face or not. I would be so weird to be sitting like 3 rows back and having this flight attendant just airdropping you nudes and you can see her sitting there in the jump seat sending them. But anyways, she airdropped nudes to some passenger the whole way back to Denver. I'm sure that guy was like, dude, this was the best flight of my life. And anyways, long story short, don't be airdropping nudes to randoms on the plane. That's never going to work out well. Being a flight crew member, cabin crew, or flight crew member, that is a special fraternity. It's a really unique lifestyle. It's very different from really any job. And so there's a special bond that's created between flight attendants and pilots. Whether you've ever flown together or not, there's just a special bond there. Internationally, it's really cool. It's really awesome to be part of that. Now, in this modern day of social media, there are photos that every pilot and flight attendant needs to get. As a pilot, you have to get a picture of you outside your plane. I don't have that photo because I hate asking other people to take photos of me, so I don't have that picture. The other one you need to get is you after the end of your check ride. Your check ride's your final exam once you get certified to fly that plane. I don't have that photo either because I was just so happy that I'd passed the exam. I was just wanted the guy to sign my paper so I could get out of there because I hate taking exams. I do have what we have on the 747 because a lot of passenger planes have windows out the side, so that out the window picture, that's one that you have to get. We don't have windows that slide on the 747. We have an emergency hatch and have a bunch of photos out the emergency hatch, so that's our version of that. And then of course, with all the people being able to green screen and edit stuff, they are able to make it look like they're taking that picture while they're flying. I haven't done that because, I don't know, I'm just not that fancy. So those are the pilot pics that you have to, and most every pilot has taken or takes those pictures. As a flight attendant, you have to get some photos as well. You have to get the sitting on the cart in the middle of the aisle picture. You have to get the sitting in the jet engine picture or standing in it. You have to get the sitting in the captain's seat and typically wearing the captain's hat. So Carrie, you are gonna have to take this photo again wearing the captain's hat. And then of course, one of my favorites is laying inside the bin of the plane picture. That one you have to get as well. So those are all traditional pictures that every flight attendant typically gets over their career of being a flight attendant. Well, in this story, I was sitting there waiting to go on a deadhead. I was just gonna fly as a passenger. You see me put a bunch of different pictures up where I'm wearing my tie and riding on a passenger plane, and that's typically what's happening. I'm on a deadhead. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for this flight to come, and the flight attendants come by, and one of them recognizes me from YouTube, and she starts talking with me, and then the other one starts talking to me. So we're talking, and they say, hey, do you wanna board early? Come on down with us. Let's hang out on the plane. So I thought, yeah, sure, I'm sitting up here. I'll sit down there, whatever. So I go down there and throw my bags up and we're all just hanging out and talking. One of the flight attendants says, I'm trying to become an Instagram influencer. Will you look at my Instagram account and tell me what you think and see what I can do better? And yeah, sure, whatever. So I start looking through her photos and I say, man, you have some really great photos here, but you don't have a photo of you in the bin. Why don't you have the in the bin photo? That's one of my favorites. Now at this point I should mention that I had never seen a flight attendant get in or out of that bin, and it never really occurred to me how they do it, because when I take my photos like out the top of a 747, it's like, yeah, I just stand on the seat and put my head out, not a big deal. I never really thought about how difficult it would be to actually climb into a bin. And then I didn't realize just how ungraceful it would be until I started seeing things like this of someone actually doing it. It would be kind of like if you were doing parkour but in a dress. I don't know, it really impressed me, but you kind of get the idea. It's not a graceful thing going in or coming out. Anyway, the flight attendant gets into the bin and she poses for some pictures, kind of like what Kat is doing in this picture here. But I suggest, hey, why don't you take the picture like what Stella is doing in this picture here? Climb through the support rack and take the photo like that. Now she seemed hesitant to climb through there, but due to me suggesting it and the flight attendants encouraging her, also known as peer pressure, she decided to climb through that. And I should mention as well, All of you had that little boy in your neighborhood growing up who would do things like jump off the garage with a trash bag, acting or thinking that it was going to work like a parachute, or putting his head through the bins of a staircase or railing of a staircase to see if he can put his head through or leg through, or convincing one of the other neighborhood kids to do that. You guys all had that kid in that neighborhood. I was that kid. Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. Anyway, so back to my great idea of telling her to climb through that support beam there. We take about 20 or so photos, and then I'm thinking, hey, this looks good. 20 photos, there's going to be 1 or 2 good ones in here. Now, all of you know that when they get a bunch of photos taken, what's the first thing that they do? Them and all their friends run over and start looking at their photos. So I take all these photos, and then the other flight attendants are now all huddled up over the phone looking at the pictures. Well, while they're all looking and oohing and awing like, oh yeah, that's a good one, oh that's great, I kind of glance over and I notice the flight attendant hasn't gotten out of the bin yet, and she has this kind of look of panic on her face. And I think, uh-oh, that's not good. So then I start trying to help her get out, and the flight attendants go into emergency flight attendant mode, where they're now helping her get out, going forward, going back, and pulling on her top and skirt and doing all these things to try to get her out, and it's not going. After about 10 minutes, the gate agent comes down, and some of you may not know this, but typically the gate agent will come down before boarding and ask the crew, is everything ready to go? Are you guys ready to board? So the gate agent comes down and says, are you guys ready to board? Then sees the flight attendant is stuck in there and we're all trying to work her out. So now the gate agent jumps in and starts trying to help get her out of the bin. And after about 5 minutes of that, she says, okay, I'm just gonna have to mark this flight as delayed. So I'm just gonna say crew's not ready and mark it as a delayed flight. And as she starts walking away, I say, I need you to call the maintenance people over here, call 2 of them, tell them that we have a bin that needs to get fixed right away before we can board. Don't tell them the flight attendant's stuck in there, and don't call fire and rescue. Just tell them you have a bin and that needs to get fixed, and tell them to come right away. At this point, I'm really thinking to myself, this girl is going to be in trouble, and Kelsey, you're probably going to be banned from this airline forever. Anyway, after about 5 or 10 minutes, these maintenance guys show up, and I'm thinking, man, that's fast, that's great. They walk in, look up, and see the girl stuck in there, see us trying to get her out, and immediately start laughing. I mean, hysterically bent over, doubled over, laughing, and they say, hey, sweetie, don't even worry about this. You are not the first person this has happened to. I'll have you out of there in a couple minutes. So they leave and they're laughing, and I'm thinking, okay, what a terribly embarrassing situation for her, but better than 2 fire trucks showing up, because then there'd be a ton of attention. These guys will get her out. Nobody will know, no big deal. They come back after a couple minutes and, I don't know, do some screws or something. I was kind of standing to the side because I didn't want to be in their way. Do some screws or something. Boom, she slides out. No big deal. And so while they're fixing the bin and getting it back ready to go again, I say, you guys all ready? And they're like, yeah. I go up to the gate agent and I say, start boarding now. Start sending them all now as quickly as you can so we can get out on time. So I come back in, I board, I sit in my seat, and they just fill up that jet bridge. That jet bridge is now all full up, and the maintenance guys finish. As soon as they're done, they walk off, and all these people just start streaming on the plane. So we get everybody on the plane, and we actually pushed back, and we left on time. So the moral of this story is, trust your pilots to safely get you on the ground. Once you're on the ground, probably question some of the life advice or ideas that we might have that don't sound like good ideas. Just trust your gut on that. I should mention that the flight attendants that are in these pictures have nothing to do or anything to do with any of these pictures. There are some other YouTubers that are flight attendants that I sent messages to and asked them if I could use their photos. They aren't involved in this in any possible way. I put a link to their Instagram down in the description below in the video. Go check them out. They're all super, super sweet. Now, while I may not give great advice, there are some people out there who give terrible advice. If you want to see me roasting some people who give you terrible advice on how to survive a plane crash, check out this video here. And if you want to hear some other crazy stories about aviation, check out this video up here. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.